Welcome back to the second episode of Alaura. I'm so glad that you decided to join me again, or maybe you're joining me for the first time. If you haven't seen this show or you don't know what it's about, this show is all about connecting that creative side of you to the spiritual side of you and practical application steps for you to use to create a happier, more fulfilled life. Last week, I kind of touched on the fact that not everybody considers themselves to be a creative person in the traditional sense of the word. But the truth is that we are all co-creating our reality. The goal of this show is to teach you and give you tips and content on how to create your life from a more spiritually conscious level. We aim to bring you content and calls to action each week that will inspire you, empower you, and evoke that creative side of you and that spiritual side of you. Our intention with this show is to give you a space and to give you some time, whether you're an adult or you're a kid, to smile, to laugh, to relax, to go within, to learn a little bit more about yourself, and to learn about how to co-create your life from a more spiritually conscious level. Today's topic is all about going within, the willingness to go within. There is something so scary and vulnerable, but ultimately freeing about the willingness to go within. Without the willingness to go within, sure, you might accomplish certain accolades, you might get certain external things, but the truth is, it's very, very difficult to live a purposeful and fulfilled life if you don't have the willingness to go within. Having a willingness to go within requires a certain level of honesty with yourself, which can be really scary. Sometimes we aren't willing to go within for fear of what we might find in there. It's kind of like that fear of cleaning out the junk drawer or dumping your purse out to take out the stuff that you don't need. Guilty. So what is it that holds us back from digging in deep and uncovering what's really going on inside of us if we know that ultimately it will make us feel happier, more fulfilled, and live a more purposeful life? I discovered Dr. Joe Dispenza several months ago, and it has dramatically changed my life to implement his teachings. Dr. Joe Dispenza wrote a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. In the book, he writes, when you invest in yourself, you invest in your future. I took down these notes from a video of his, and I would highly recommend rewatching this later or writing down these 5 tips for going within. First he says, disconnect. Disconnect from the world. Turn off your cell phone, turn off your computer, turn off your TV, and close your eyes. Second, he says, breathe and center yourself. When you center yourself on the present moment, you have more energy to create with. You're most creative in the present moment. Number 3, he says, ask yourself, can I be defined by a vision of the future instead of the vision of the past? We are all guilty of waking up and jumping into our day and thinking about the problems of yesterday and thinking about that fight that we had and not being defined by a vision of the future. Contemplate the answer to this question. You are rewiring your brain by doing this. Decide on the emotions that you will feel and teach your body what your future feels like. Don't get up until you feel like that. Number 4 is to rehearse the new you. The things you have to do, the choices you have to make, the steps you need to take in order to live in the future. These are not the things that you're doing now. They are the next level new you. Number 5, he says, let go of the past and decide the thoughts and habits that you can bring to the future. Decide on what behaviors, actions, and unconscious habits you have and what can go with you. How do you talk to yourself? How do you talk to others? Do you blame? Do you complain? Do you have a victim mentality? Become so conscious and accountable to yourself of those behaviors that you never go unconscious again. Decide what emotions no longer belong in your future. If you want to be wealthy, you can't feel lack. If you want to be healthy, you can't take insecurity or fear. Do this every single day. After the break, we're going to talk about the practical application steps that I use every day that I learned from Joe Dispenza. Stick around. Honestly, my smile has always been one of my biggest insecurities. After filming the music video for Eroticy last year, I knew I had to do something. I started Smile Direct Club last year, and I could not be more thrilled with the results. Their packaging says confidence in a box, and they weren't lying. My teeth are whiter, they're straighter, and I feel so much more confident on and off camera. It is literally as affordable as some gym memberships, and it is so easy to use, not to mention easy to remove if I need to sing or be on camera. If you've been wanting to fix your teeth, but you didn't think it was affordable, or you couldn't get locked into something like braces, this is totally for you. Make sure you click on the link below and sign up today. Shortly after watching that video before the commercial break, I adopted an activity that Joe Dispenza calls the 7-day challenge. I think I'm up to like 97 now. I originally heard about this on the Jay Shetty podcast, which if you don't know Jay Shetty, he is another great spiritual teacher and thought leader. Joe Dispenza breaks down these practical application steps to help you further go within so that you can live from a vision of the future instead of a memory of the past. This is truly something that I do every single morning. First, he says, write down the greatest ideal version of yourself that you could be today. One that constantly comes up for me is to be focused on myself, not focused on others, not focused on how fast others are going compared to me, just focused on myself and what I need to do for the day. My greatest ideal version is to remain focused on myself. The next question he asks you is to write down 4 conscious thoughts that you would like to be mindful of and maybe rewire. This is a time to really get real with yourself because it's not benefiting you to not be honest with yourself. Do you complain a lot? Do you blame others a lot? Do you maybe have a victim mentality? I know for myself, I had to be really honest with myself, and a lot of things came up that I wasn't such a fan of, but it helped me rewire those habits that I had. Until you identify these unconscious habits that you have, that you've been practicing without even realizing it, you can't change from that victim, complaining, blaming mentality. So this is the first step to that. The next question is, what does your future self look like? Yeah, maybe on the outside, but mostly on the inside. How do you deal with conflict? How do you deal with people at work? How do you deal with your family? I often write down that my future self is non-reactive, is full of worthiness and appreciation and gratitude for this life, and allowing and relaxing. My team and I at Love Light Sound Music have created our own version of this 7-day challenge, along with a few other questions. And you can find that if you scan the QR code right here, or you can go to lovelightsoundmusic.com, and on the show page, there's a free PDF for you to download. Seriously, just try this for 7 days. I promise it will totally change your life. Coming up, we go inward with spiritual teacher Kay Hutchinson. She walks us through a meditation and she explains why it's so important, especially to our creativity, to go within. You won't want to miss this.
So I'm wondering, Laura, if I could just show you really quickly something that can help you to start calming right here in this moment. Okay, so first we have to start.
Are you a teen or the parent of a teen who feels shy, uncomfortable, depressed, or even anxious? Does your teen have a love and passion for music, but doesn't feel like she has the confidence to step into her gift? I know just how she feels. As a teen, I was shy, uncomfortable, and unsure about myself, but I knew that I loved music and that it was my gift. After performing all over the US as an R&B singer for over 100,000 people, I realized that the skills and techniques that I learned from the stage influenced my life in all other areas. I became a better public speaker. I made better eye contact. And I even learned how to love myself as a person even more. Imagine how it would feel for your teen to find her voice and feel more confident every single day. Imagine what it would be like for her to feel good about herself without feeling like you have to convince her. As a teen, it's often scary to try something new and uncertain, but those who are willing to take that leap of faith uncover so much self-love and confidence that changes their life and how they see themselves, all while fostering their love of music. Unseen to Queen is a 6-week online transformation through music course for teen girls created and taught by myself to learn how singing, songwriting, and performance builds confidence, increases self-love, and helps develop everyday life skills like public speaking. The girls have an opportunity to learn fundamentals of music while learning how to feel more confident. They get to perform weekly for live feedback from their peers and me, and they get access to a private online community of other teens just like them. This course has been a game changer for so many teens. 17-year-old Naya says, "This course has been an amazing help with my self-confidence. Before I came to Alaura, I knew that I had the potential for big things, but I was always afraid to put myself out there. Now I push my limits to experience everything and to be the best that I can be. She has led me out of my shell as a singer and as an artist." This podcast is partnered with Unseen to Queen, and the listeners get the first class free. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. So click the link below to sign your teen up today.
So Kay Hutchinson has over 18 years of experience as a Chinese energy medicine specialist who uses breath and mindful movement to help clients go inward to release creativity and remove blocks from their lives. She is the author of 5 Elements Healing, a practical guide for reclaiming your essential power, and the creator of the Get Your Mojo Back 8-week healing journey for sensitive, creative women. Yay, welcome, Kay.
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here with you.
Yes. I wanted to have you on the show because I think that you have a really great and unique perspective to share with our audience about why we need to have that willingness to go within.
It's really easy to get kind of drawn out and pulled into the world of external stimulation such that it makes it really hard to go in. So there's the willingness, but then there's also the ability. First, we have to start paying attention to what's happening in our physical selves. So the first step inward in the willingness to go there is beginning to calm our nervous system down. So I'm wondering, Laura, if I could just show you really quickly something that can help you to start calming right here in this moment. Okay, so come to the edge of your seat, put your feet flat on the ground, and just imagine as if your feet were connecting in with the earth. And then what we're going to begin to do is just place hands over heart center. And just get a sense of your hands resting on your chest. Begin to bring that awareness into how you're breathing, noticing the rise and fall of your chest through your hands. And see if you can kind of pick up your heartbeat. Move your hands to another place until you kind of locate that heartbeat. And then we're going to begin with a long exhalation, exhaling through your nostrils. Release it out. Deeply inhale through your nostrils into your belly. Filling in through your lungs. Exhale again through the nostrils, pulling your belly towards your spine. Release any distractions from your lungs. Inhale once again, bringing your awareness to your feet, resting on the ground. Last exhalation, releasing and letting the air flow outward. Beautiful. And then just let your hands settle down to your lower belly. Feel your hands just gently grounding you through your lower belly and stay connected to that sensation of your feet, just anchoring you to the ground. Now you're here in your body. You're not out there in the world. You're here in your breath. So when we get into this place, what we've just done on a neuroscience level is we've calmed one of the longest nerves in our bodies down, called the vagus nerve. That's the nerve that keeps us looking up here and keeps our brains spinning, such that it makes it hard to go inward. So now that we've calmed that, we've already told our brain that we're in a safe space. And
Mm.
it's only when we feel safe that we can give ourselves permission to go inward.
I love that. I hope people at home did that because I feel like I'm really connected right now. I'm curious because you said, is it called the vega nerve?
The vagus nerve,
The
it's like
vagus
kind of
nerve,
like Las Vegas, but it's
Las
spelled a
Vegas.
little different.
So you said, that we grounded that, and that's also the nerve that gets stimulated by the outside world. Is that right? So
Absolutely.
when is there a either or? Like we have to be grounded, and if we're not, we're out here. It's either or.
Not necessarily. There's a spectrum. That nerve could be vibrating way out here and so scattered that you cannot focus on anything. Or it can be activated more on this side of the spectrum where you're not centered or grounded, but you're also not so scattered and focused that you can't bring thoughts together and touch into your feelings and your emotions or your spiritual aspects of self. So there's a spectrum of that. It's not an either or. And it's kind of that question of where are you landing on your level of activation of that nerve and your level of ability to kind of pull yourself inward. So, because we fall out of being centered all the time. So, if it were the case that every time we're not centered, that
We're
nerve is
off.
going to take us
Right.
outward.
Yeah.
So, it's just a matter of kind of
Spectrum.
training us to have longer and longer states of both centeredness and calmness in that nerve. That's a great question.
Is your brain actually operating at a higher, like is firing and wiring at a higher level, or what's the purpose of us doing that?
So we know that from studies of the brain, when we achieve more of the meditative state, where our brain waves flow into a frequency that's called alpha, or deeper states are theta. And we also find that when we study the brains of creative artists, when they're in that zone playing perhaps the piano, or they're in that zone painting,
Right.
that their brains are very much similar to monks when monks are in that deep state. So when we allow ourselves that moment to kind of gather ourselves, begin to bring our attention back to our breath, to our bodies, we allow the brain to go into its most creative brain frequency states.
I love that. I love your energy.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the best. I'm curious in regards to that, something I talk about on the show is that the show is for creatives, right? But the idea is to get people a little bit out of the traditional concept of what it is to be a creator, because we're all creators, right? If you're not a painter or a singer, people are like, oh, I don't create. And it's like, yes, you do, but you don't know it. And a big intention of mine with this show is to get people thinking in a creative space, whether they make art or it's just about creating their life. So I'm wondering if maybe you could touch on that, about how going in and the willingness to go in is helping us create, whether we are singers or painters or just creating our life and being intentional.
Absolutely. When we give ourselves that permission to go inward and we achieve that brain state that is closer to meditative states, what happens is that it allows us a great expansiveness in terms of our thinking and how we put ideas together. So, and I love that because a lot of people always go, well, okay, I don't do art and I don't
Right.
do music and I'm just not a creative type. Well, guess what?
That's right.
Anytime you're using your imagination to solve a problem, you're being creative. Anytime you're putting two ideas together or language together to express a thought that you may have, you're being creative. It's just the idea of being able to kind of tap in to what you're feeling and finding a way to express that. And sometimes, it may be that accountant that is finding a way to solve a client's financial problem and they're using math to do that. That's a form of creativity. It may be when you're in a relationship, finding a way to navigate a conflict with another person and doing that in a way that's with love and with the idea of growth. That's creativity. So when we really give ourselves that permission to go inward, there's a whole toolkit of things that come available to us to move us through being able to create new ways of expressing ourselves in whatever arena of life that we're moving through.
What would you tell somebody, a viewer, or somebody who's like, that looks like it feels good, but I got a lot of cobwebs and stuff I'm scared to go in and deal with that? What would you say to them about that?
It's funny, how do we define what that willingness is, right? We have to start looking at what does that really mean to will? It simply means to allow yourself the
Right.
opportunity to take even just baby steps. That willingness doesn't have to look like this huge big thing where you're jumping into the deep end.
Right.
That willingness might be, I'm going to sit and just notice my breathing with my hands on my chest for the first step of going inward. And then as I sit with my hands on my chest, I'm going to start to notice, what emotions am I feeling in this moment? Oh, there may be fearfulness, that's there. There may be anxiety, that's there. What would that first step look like? And that might even be just something simply like brainstorming and writing down what's coming to you in this calmer state, knowing that you don't have to take a physical action on it right away. You can sit and percolate and look at that.
Right.
And so it's so important to allow ourselves to take the footsteps slowly into this action piece. And that's how we marry the two, that when there's resistance here to coming inward, we just begin softly with the physical body flowing into the emotions, flowing into gentle things like journaling or putting ideas down, and giving ourselves permission to then take the next step after we've settled. So this kind of gentle approach, sometimes we think that it has to be something that's really fast, where we connect into our internal self and bam, we're doing all this action. And that can be really intimidating to people,
Right.
and it can feel overwhelming. So if we can really give ourselves permission to say, it's okay to go inward in small steps and chunks. It's okay to stop, pause, and digest what we're feeling. Then the actionable steps becomes something that's achievable and doesn't feel like, oh, that thing that's so big and overwhelming that I could never take that action. Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is
So.
in, that piece of, I can't take the action.
Not everybody understands the immense benefit of going within and being honest and being vulnerable with yourself. So they're not inspired to do the work and deal with that and go through that fear and uncomfortable, because they don't understand how much of a benefit it is to them.
So when we begin to just take those small steps, we need to pay attention to that pleasure feeling. That's important in the beginning, because that's the reward that our brain is getting through the chemicals that we're releasing, our feel-good chemicals. The other things that we can do is we can plan an active reward for that. For example, I'm going to sit for 5 minutes and just put hands on chest and just notice my feelings. And then at the end of this, if my favorite drink is maybe a kombucha or a cup of tea or even a coffee, whatever that is, I'm going to have that ready for myself as my little mini reward for allowing myself to go inward. And once our brain starts getting that reward, it becomes easier and easier to go in, because we see the benefit of that.
That's how I feel about my meditation, is like, I'm at the end, I'm like, don't end, don't be done in my meditation, because it feels so good. It feels so good. And I see how differently I will go through a day on with meditation and centeredness and not. And just that alone, feeling more in the flow, feeling more creative and more connected, makes me want to do it. Definitely. Is there anything that you want to leave people with about the willingness to go within?
Absolutely. I would say, don't be hard on yourselves. That's the big thing, is that we know that something can benefit us, but there's natural resistance to it. And then we get caught up in feeling badly that we're not moving in the direction that we would like to be moving. So that's the really first piece, is to really allow and invite that gentleness. It's okay also to not go inward all the time. It is okay to have things that are distractions. It's just finding those pockets of time. Just know that you can find the smallest pocket of time to go inward and begin taking those first steps in that journey inward. When you allow yourself to chunk it like that, then it doesn't become this chore, and it doesn't become this esoteric thing that everybody says that's spiritual and creative that you should do.
Right.
It becomes something that you invite yourself to get curious about.
Thank you so much for being here. I love you and your spirit and your energy. I knew you would be a perfect expert on this for everybody. I hope that they really are listening and tapping in and utilizing what you're giving them. And we look forward to seeing more of you in the future.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks,
Love bubbles to everybody.
Just like our interview last week with Honey La Rochelle, this week's interview with Kay had so many gems. It was so hard to cut it down for just a segment on this show. So make sure that you head over to lovelightsoundmusic.com so you can check out the full interview. If you saw last week's episode, I talked a little bit about this segment and how initially I wanted it to be called Ask Alaura and have people write in and ask questions about the willingness of the week, and we would go over them. I decided to change the segment to Alaura Asks because I believe that it will be more beneficial for me to ask you and for you to ask yourself. First, I want you to ask yourself, where am I? And be honest. Where am I on the spectrum of willingness to go within? Are you totally and completely scared of any kind of silence and going and being present? Do you do it a little bit, but then you back off when it gets uncomfortable or quiet? Or maybe you're already doing meditation and stillness, but you like to go a little bit deeper. Wherever you are, write down or think about where you are on the spectrum of the willingness to go within. Next, I want you to ask yourself, what are some things that might be holding me back from going within? Hopefully, after Kay and I's discussion, you understand more the great benefits that come from going within. Maybe you are unsure about how to go within. Maybe you're scared of what you might find in there. Or maybe you just don't know where to start. And all of those are okay. You just need to identify where you are on the spectrum and maybe why you're not willing to go within or why you are where you are. You need to identify the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Last, I want you to think about some of the benefits for yourself of going within. How would it change the way that you are at work? How would it change the way that you are at home? How would it change the way that you talk to yourself? All of these things are really important, and all of them stand to benefit from you having the willingness to go within. So as always, for the outro, we talk about 3 takeaways so that you can take them into your day or your week or your month and apply these to develop further the willingness to go within. First, lean into the discomfort of going within. I know it's uncomfortable and it's scary and it's uncertain. It might bring up things that you didn't even know were in there, but until you're willing to go within, you cannot change what's going on outside. Second, you need to be easy on yourself. This one's a hard one for me, but you have to be easy on yourself. This is a process. Like Kay told us, it doesn't have to be an hour of meditation. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes of meditation. You don't even have to start with meditation. You can just simply go for a walk, or you can simply sit and turn everything off and be with yourself and have a cup of coffee. Start there. Start with 3 to 5 minutes a day of just focusing and silencing and being present. Find little moments throughout your day where you can get present. This is one of my favorite tricks. If I'm driving or if I'm sitting waiting for somebody, instead of checking my phone, I decide to get present, think about what I'm grateful for in that moment, and calm myself and relax. This whole practice should become a daily exercise for you. It's going within is not something you do on one day and you figure it out. It's something you need to get present every single day. And the more you do it, the less scary it will be, I promise. The third takeaway is to relax and observe. You don't have to do anything, and you don't have to change anything if you don't want. Just have the willingness to go within and observe what comes up. Do your best not to judge yourself, not to blame yourself, and not to feel badly about how well or not well you're doing. Observe the thoughts that you're thinking. Observe the thoughts that you're thinking while you're driving. Observe the thoughts that you're thinking while you're eating, or while you're cooking, or while you're taking a shower. Eckhart Tolle has a great quote from the book, The Power of Now. And he says, when you realize that you're not present is the moment that you become present. That's all we have for today's show. Thank you, as always, to our special guest, Kay Hutchinson. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your meditation and your teachings. Of course, major thanks to Dr. Joe Dispenza for changing my life and changing my team's life. And I hope that you implement these practices and they change your life as well. Of course, shout out to the team at Love Light Sound Music for helping bring the show to you guys so that you can live a happier and more fulfilled life. As always, you can find all the resources, all the books, all the teachings, all the downloads from this show and every other show at lovelightsoundmusic.com. I hope you leave feeling more worthy, more valuable, more creative, and more willing to go within. Remember to be present, be aligned, and be willing to receive all the things that are already meant for you. Peace and positivity and love to you kings and queens, and I will see you next week.